Hello, so creative. It's Faustina here. Welcome to today's tutorial. Today I'm going to learn how to draft this chancy-less blouse. So this is the material I'm using to cut mine. I'm using alt blood 1.5 yards of chancy lace, my tape rule, my drafting paper, my marker, my scissors. So if it's something that you would like to learn how I cut am, so please keep watching and let's move over to our drafting table. So I've gone ahead to lay my drafting paper and I'm trying to mark out our starting line like so. So from our starting line, we now start imputing all our vertical measurement. So from our starting line, we now impute our shoulder to our chest line, which is also known as our armhole line. So how do you get your chest line? Your bust divide by 6 plus 1.5 inches allowance, and because we are doing shoulder slope, we are going to add extra 1 inch for our shoulder slope allowance. So you will now go ahead and impute the value that you have as your chest line. So from our shoulder again, or from our chest line though, we are coming down by 1.5 inches for our bust point. So I'm trying to rule out the line like so. So from our shoulder now, we are going to impute our waistline, our front waistline. The front waistline is different from the back waistline. The front waistline is always longer than the back waistline. So after imputing my front waistline, from my waistline, I will now impute my hip line. So I will go ahead and label all our vertical lines for clearer understanding. So we have our chest line, our bust point, our waist and our shoulder. So from my waist, I'm now imputing my hip line of 9 inches, which will serve as our blouse length, and we are also going to alter it. So in order to give it that scallop design that the original design that we are trying to replicate has, so after labeling all my vertical lines, I will also go ahead and add from my shoulder to my under bust measurement, because we are cutting an over bust, we are using an over bust measurement for this particular project. So I'm repeating my under bust measurement because we are going to tighten our under bust measurement. So this line I mark out now is our under bust measurement. So our vertical lines are also all ready. So we now start marking out all our horizontal line by imputing my shoulder measurement on my shoulder and doing the same on the chest line, so that I can get my straight line, which will serve as my armhole line. So on my shoulder, impute my neckline width and depth of 3 by 3 inches. So I'm trying to join them together like so. So on that armhole line, I'm going to come down by 1.5 for my front shoulder slope. So I'm going to taper it back to my neckline like so. You can see how slanted the shoulder is looking. So on that armhole line also, I came up by 3 inches from my chest line and I went in by 0.75. I'm going to now taper it to my shoulder tip like so, my armhole line tip. So on that chest line, we are going to impute our bust divide by 4 measurement, so that we can complete our armhole curve like so. So after completing your armhole curve, you now go ahead and impute the same value you have on the chest to your bust point, after which you now proceed in imputing your waist measurement, your waist divide by 4 measurement plus 1 inch that intake allowance. While on the hip line, you are going to do your hip divide by 4 and impute the value. So on this waistline, I'm trying to impute my waistline value with 1 inch that intake, while on the hip line, I also went ahead to impute my hip divide by 4 plus 1 inch that intake, because we are going to also bring down this waistline to our hip line, but I have not added the hip line that intake allowance. So I'm trying to impute the nipple to nipple measurement on our waist, hip, under bust and bust point. We stop at our bust point. So I went ahead to draw the straight line. On our waist, I'm trying to open up our dart leg by half inch. Remember, we added 1 inch dart intake. I'm going to rule it out like so. You can see how I'm trying to place my pattern curve. And on the hip line, I also bring down the waist dart leg down to our hip line like so. And I'm going to replace this 1 inch by the side of our hip line like so. So I went ahead to replace it by the side. So this is it. So we now start tightening our under bust. So on our under bust, we are going to impute the circumference of our under bust, divide by 4. So after marking out the value, the remaining value we will have on that under bust, we are going to now split it by sharing it into 2. The center front of our blouse we have the smaller value, while the side we have the larger value. So after getting the value from that your nipple to nipple measurement, on the side I'm going to add 1.25, while on the center front I'm going to add 0.75. In total we have 2 inches allowance on that side of our under bust. So basically we have tighten our under bust by adding those darts. So I'm now going to place my pattern curve to now convert that value to our bust point in order to form our bustier shape. So you can see how I'm placing my pattern curve. I lay it upside down so that that shape will not be pointed, neither will it be straight. So after getting your bustier shape, you now drag that value all the way down to your original dart leg like so. So I'm trying to take it down to my dart leg. So after taking it down to your dart leg, on the shoulder we are going to divide the shoulder into 2 in order to get the midpoint of the shoulder, and we are going to drag that midpoint to go and meet our bust point like so. So after getting your bust point, you will now determine how deep you want your off shoulder bustier to be. So I came down by 6 inches. You can as well come down by 5 or 7, is as preferred. So I came down by 6 inches and I rule it out. In case you want to mark out, you want to get a sweetheart neckline on your own blouse, from that your neck depth you can go ahead and come down by 5 inches or 6 inches, and you now drag the line back to your shoulder line like so. And you now you go ahead and open up your dart leg by half inches or 0.75 inches if you are working for a plus size person. So you now take down that your dart to go and meet your bust point. Basically your bustier has been formed, but from our original blouse that we are trying to replicate, it does not have that sweetheart neckline. So after cutting this pattern, we are going to close up that sweetheart neckline before we now go ahead and alter our front yoke. So while on the side from our bust point, we are going to impute our side bust dart. That side bust dart is the difference between your front waist and your back waist. Remember I said earlier, the front waist is always longer than the back because of the bust, the front bust. So we are going to now impute the value. So our pattern is ready. We now go ahead and start cutting it out. So you watch closely and see how I go about in cutting out the pattern. So I'm trying to cut out the center front first so that I can go ahead and close up the side dart, because we are going to close it up. So I went ahead to cut out the sweetheart neckline, which I'm going to close up before I now transfer the pattern to my main fabric. So I'm trying to close up the side dart because we won't be needing it. We try and close it up. So if you watch closely by the side, you can see that we are lacking some inches because of that side that we added. You just go ahead and use your ruler and rule it out to your chest line in order to complete that small allowance we are lacking on the side. after which you now proceed and continue cutting out your pattern. So after cutting out our pattern, we now go ahead and start altering the neck. You can see how slanted that the neck is looking on that our original blouse that we are trying to replicate. So after cutting out this particular blouse, so like I said earlier, we won't be making use of that sweet heart design, so we are trying to close it up with our masking tape, because the original design we are trying to replicate does not have that sweetheart neckline. So we now go ahead and close it up with our masking tape. So this is the beauty of pattern paper, or the beauty of drafting out your design in a pattern paper before you now transfer to your fabric. In case you make any mistake, you can easily correct it before you now transfer it to your pattern, to your original fabric that you are working with. So this particular yoke, I'm going to cut it in order to get the full pattern of it. So I've gone ahead to cut it on fold so that I can get the my complete front yoke, so that I can go ahead and alter that yoke design. So I went ahead to open it up. You can see that one side of the shoulder is slanted. So from the neck, I'm going to come in by 1 inches, while on the center is just as preferred. You can go down by 2 to 2.5, but just make sure that one side of the shoulder is slanted while one side is just straight. So on the other side, I'm trying to get the midpoint of the other side, and I also go ahead and came out by 1/2 inch, but you can just go ahead and slant it the way you like. So, but just make sure that one side is slanted. So I'm trying to place my pattern curve so that I can get that slanty effect. So after slanting the one side of your shoulder, the other one you can go ahead and leave it straight. Once that straight part is shorter than the slanted part on the shoulder, so you just go ahead and go in by 1/2 inch. Remember, we came in by 1 inch. So after coming in by 1 inch like we did on the other side, we also went ahead to go in again by 1/2 inch before we now join the straight line together. So I'm trying to label it so that I won't misplace it. So I will now go ahead and cut out this neck that I just slanted now. So our front pattern is basically ready. We now go ahead and start drafting the back pattern. So this is how your neck will look like after sewing it. So these are our complete front pattern. These are all our complete front pattern. This is the side, while this is the center front, and the yoke are all complete. So we now go ahead and label it so that we won't misplace any part of it, which we now proceed in drafting out the back pattern. So I've gone ahead to lay my pattern paper very flat, and I went ahead to draw out my starting line. So from my starting line, I'm going to impute my chest line like we did on the front. After imputing our chest line, I'm also going to impute my back waistline. Like I said, the front is always longer than the back because of the bust that is on the front. So after imputing your back waistline, so from your back waistline, you are going to also go ahead and impute your hip line from your waistline. Impute your hip line of 9 inches. So I'm trying to rule out all our vertical lines. So after getting our lines, I went ahead to label them for clearer view. So after getting them on the shoulder, I'm going to impute my shoulder measurement and also do the same on the chest in order to get our armhole straight line like so. And on the shoulder also, I'm going to impute my neckline measurement, and on the armhole line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for our back shoulder slope. So I'm now going to define the remaining armhole line into two in order to get our midpoint, and I came in by half an inch and taper it back to our armhole tip line. And on the chest line, I impute our bust divide by 4 measurement in order to complete that armhole curve like so. So for the back, we are drafting dartless pattern. We are not going to add any dart on the back because we'll be making use of eyelet. So on the waist, I impute my waist divide by 4, while on the hip, I impute my hip divide by 4 value. And I went ahead to join the lines like so. So after marking out all our body measurements, we are going to create our back opening. So for our back opening, I came in by 1.5 inches on the waist, on our chest line, and also our hip line. I want the opening to be straight. I don't want it to be slanted. So I went ahead to form a straight line of 1.5 inch. This will serve as our back opening. So after getting your back opening, go ahead to impute our eyelet space. The eyelet space, you want it to be on a plain material. You don't want to add it our chantilles. So I went ahead to also create it by 1.5 inches on our waist, on our chest line, and on our hip line. So the first line we drew is for our back opening, while the second line is for our eyelet space, which we are going to cut on a plain material. So for the back opening, we are not going to be making use of it. We are going to cut it off, while for the eyelet space, we'll be making use of it. This is where our eyelet will be sitting. This is the space where our eyelet will be sitting. So for the neck, we are going to alter the neck. By the 3 inches, we went ahead to come in by another 1 inch, and for our neck depth, we are going down by 1 inch. So basically, we make use of 4 by 1 inches. So on that 1 inches that we came in from, we are going to now come down by 6 inches like we did on the front part, so that our front armhole and our back armhole will be matching by the side like so. So I went ahead to place the front pattern on our back pattern on the armhole side, so I will make sure that the two armhole side are matching. So on the 6 inches on the center back, I came down by 2.5, so that I have my back slanted like so. I don't want our back to be high. I want it to come a little bit down. So after which, on the neck depth, I'm going to come down by 1 inches, and I'm going to curve it all the way to our eyelet space line. So this is it. Our back is ready. We now start labeling them so that we won't misplace them, and after which we now start cutting it out. So our back is ready. Our back is so simple and nice. So go ahead and cut it out. For the back opening, like I said, we won't be making use of that particular pattern. So I went ahead to trash that back opening, and I continue cutting the side and the armhole side. So after cutting out our pattern, I will now show you how you go about in cutting your front yoke, so that the front yoke will have that chantinless border on the mat. So this is our back pattern. Our back pattern is basically ready. So we are going to separate that eyelet space from our main bodies, because we are going to cut out this eyelet space on a plain fabric, while the other one will be closed with chantilles. So I'm trying to label it so that we won't misplace it with our arrow. So this is the back. The back is basically ready, and also the front is also ready. So this is all our pattern that we are going to be using to transfer to our fabric in order to get the blouse. So we are going to transfer them to our fabric, but I'm going to show you how you are going to place your front yoke line so that you have that border effect. So you can see how I'm placing that front yoke line on that slopey border effects on the down part of our chantilles, and I went ahead to add half inches on the down part, on our armhole and on our shoulder. I also go ahead and cut out this straight one the same way I cut out the other one. So we have come to the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Watch out for the sewing part. Bye.